Cowboy, cowgirl. I wonder why I named it the cowboy perspective. Well, I think it's because I'm a boy, but I should have named it the cowboy and cowgirl perspective because it's so important. Now, everybody, I'm saying all this because I've got really a hugely successful cowgirl on the show today. Her name's Charmayne James, and I'm excited for the cowboy perspective, the TCP Nation, to hear Charmayne's story and how you think about things. So thank you for coming, really taking time out of your life to come share with us. So that's really the first thing I'd like to say.
Well, I'm happy to be here, and I know that we're here kind of connecting with the people we grew up around and people in our lifestyle, maybe some people wanting to learn more about it.
You bet. See, and this is how I do it. Like, you just said a thing that I'm curious about. Personally, my oldest daughter, I've got horses. We don't ride them every day. It's not our life. I mean, I'm doing other things. My wife's doing other things. My oldest daughter really loves it. Like, she's took a horse in the round pen, got him saddled the first time all on her own. Really proud of her for that. And with a little of my help, but I'm not the greatest. Do you have a thought process or a piece of advice you'd give, let's say, her or me as her parent in how to support that? Like, how do you help a kid that wants to get into rodeo or thinks they want to get into rodeo but may not even really know what that means yet? Has anybody ever asked you that question, or do you think about that?
I think that's the case with a lot of people. How do I get there? How do I do it? And I think I like this idea of maybe like, let's put in 2% every day of like we got to set a goal. Let's try to figure out how to get there. And every day, you just do a little bit at a time of getting there. And even though you may not reach that goal, but you got to put the wheels in motion of learning how to get there and how to do that. So it's such a learning curve. And I think far as physically and fundamentally and everything from beginning to where your end goal is. So if you're a beginner barrel racer or roper or whatever you are, you're a beginner, the distance between that beginning point and being an NFR contestant, there's a lot in between there. And so that can be overwhelming, right? If we want to go to the gym and we want to learn, we're like, okay, I'm going to work out I'm going to get on the treadmill. I'm going to run an hour and a half. You go there with that goal, I'm going to run an hour and a half. You're going to be disappointed. Yeah. Because you couldn't run that hour and a half. And so I think if you just put in 2% every day of going out, okay, what do I really have to do to learn to be, a better contestant, a better roper, a better rider? You got to go out there and learn a little bit every day. And some people get caught up on, I just got to work. I just got to work at this, and I got to just tie more calves, and I got to ride my horse more and make more runs. That's really a dangerous path, because that's only part of it, Yeah. It's kind of bringing together the body, the mind, the spirit, and Craig Cameron talks a lot about that, and I think that there's a lot to that. So it's making sure you're doing your homework of, are my fundamentals good? Is my mind sound? Am I clear thinking how I want to get there?
I love it. I want to say yeehaw. I'm like, I've got a guy that helps me produce it, and I'll tell him sometimes just in these conversations, like, Dave, that's a yeehaw right there. Yeehaw. Charmayne's actually touching on a thing that's huge in my life right now. I'm working with my kids. They're playing sports now. They're 7th, 8th grade. They're in these age groups. They're not the athlete they want to be yet, and they want it now. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Like, how can we set a plan in front of you that gets you? And my oldest daughter's experienced it a little bit. She's ran track and got beat, but she saw a girl she wanted to be like, and she started working over a year's time. And she really improved, saw a lot of improvement. I'm proud of her for it. It taught me something to see her do that. It's like, I'm very a kind of want it now personality, like whatever.
It's
go.
what has been ingrained in society for
Yeah,
us. It's a get it right now kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you see successful people and you think, I said this to Ty once, well, that was just must have been easy for you. And he let me have it. No, it's not easy for anybody to have this level of success. Yeah, I was lucky. I had the right kind of body type, the right kind of mindset to be to accomplish what I ended up accomplishing, but it never was easy. I happened to love it, so that made it enjoyable, but easy wasn't it. I don't know.
It's never easy.
That's
No.
right. I think about Scamper. Did he just wake up one day being a great horse?
You know, if any of you ever listened to Jordan Peterson.
I love that guy.
So when you listen to Jordan Peterson, when you talk about one subject, it just goes there. It's so deep. Like these little parts of it. It's not just black or white. There's you know, all business hates women, right? You know, it's not that simple. You know, and there's a lot of these underlying variables in all of it. And so I think, you know, for me, people would say, Charmayne, you know, you got Scamper. Like, you just, you know, you had the horse. And I say, yeah. And then other people say, well, Charmayne, the moon and the stars all lined up for you. And in some way, that was meant to be like a dig, like you weren't really good enough. You just had the horse. And I didn't see it that way. I saw it like, yeah, the moon and the stars lined up. And to me, that was God's path for me.
Yeah.
And I don't think if you don't bring God into your life and try to understand, okay, I was humble about it. My parents were very humble people. And so, yeah, the moon and the stars lined up. And what I learned from riding Scamper, from all the great care, the things that he did, I can share with my students and the people who help me. And so things are a lot deeper than just hard work. And yes, I worked hard. It was in my family. It was in my genes, my DNA. It was in every core thing. But I loved it. I had passion about what I was doing. I had a vision of winning. I didn't let, when somebody told me, little girl, why don't you go home? You don't belong here. It only lit a fire under me. I didn't go crawl under a rock and think, I can't do this anymore. Oh, you know, I'm so defeated by the things people say to me. I just let them, you know, those things inspired me to be better, to be a lion. But at the same time, you got to have that grace and that finesse to, you know, when you don't win and you don't do good. This is not happening to me. This is happening for me to learn.
Oh, man, that's so great.
Right?
We all have that struggle, recognizing or seeing it's happening for me, not to me.
There's always a lesson to be learned in it. And that's the problem, is that, things are so hard for me. I remember our priest in Athens, you know, my mom and I talk about this. He says, quit blaming your parents and your circumstances in life for everything that happens to you.
Yeah.
Get out and fix it and do better, you know? And you got to have God in your heart. You got to have goodness in your heart. You have to have passion in it. And yeah, you might fail. You might make mistakes. You might screw things up somewhere along the way, but pick yourself up and get on and go with it. And you can do it. God made you perfect. You are perfect. But it's, once you know better, do better and go on. And if you live by that, things seem to get that 2% a little bit better every day.
Yeah. Write it down, folks. Like, Charmayne, okay, so it's not just a blueprint that works for everybody, but there are pieces, like you can't just say, cookie stamp this out, you're going to be what you want to be. No, you've got to take what Charmayne's saying, what Jordan Peter's saying, what maybe I'm saying, what
Ty's saying.
Yeah, what your parents are saying, what
yes.
your friends are saying.
But it's your road.
Yeah.
It's ultimately
you
your road.
You got to build it.
Your road. And I have kids, too, that compete. They play baseball. They compete at a high level. We go everywhere with them. And baseball is a game of failure.
most of the time.
And you got kids that want to be perfectionists. Like, look, it's not about me. I love you. Do your best. Like, you're going to figure it out.
Do you find yourself inclined to holler at them or coach them while they're in a game, or do you?
No, they have so much drive. They have so much passion for it that I don't. I'm mom. I'm there as a support. When they're up there hitting, I'm not worried that they're going to strike out. I'm just smiling because I want to put good energy out there. Yeah. If you fail, that's fine. Because some of the hardest things is watching your kids go through struggle. And I think any parent out there can relate to it. Yeah. And, having my mom travel with me and, the fights that would ensue after not doing well. And sometimes she was right, sometimes I was right. But I think as a parent, we need to be able to know when the right time is. You don't always want to talk about it. The time to dig in, when you've gone out there and you've knocked a barrel down, or you let up before the timer and you come out and you're mad because you didn't win. Now's not the time to get into it because you're mad and you're frustrated. You got to wait, especially with teenagers. Just wait till there's that opportune moment to speak. Maybe just say one or two things that stick in their head, but a fight ensues and it blocks out any good that you've done. So, with that said, now as a mom, yes, I've had a tendency to want to yell at them if they get mad or they get frustrated but I always go back to just remind them to be kind, to be good people. God has a purpose for you. And I go back to that, with them, because I would do the same thing for myself. I'd do the same thing for anybody I was teaching or coaching. And, and I would want to be reminded myself of that.
Did your mom do that?
Oh, my mom, my parents were great people, just good, humble, kind, compassionate. My mom was nurturing. My dad's a hard worker.
I hadn't even asked. Where'd you come from?
I grew up in Clayton, New Mexico. My dad had a feedlot there. Anybody who works in a feedlot, I rode pens, cleaned water troughs, doctored cattle, raised, baby calves. My sisters and I, we had 40 bottle calves at one time.
Wow.
Had to go out in blizzards to feed them, take care of them. I mean, things were not easy. I always tell my kids, gosh, you guys have it so easy, Do
you worry about, see, I'm terrible about this, because that's another piece I'm let's finish your story. I'm going to take a note because I want to come back and ask this question.
Yeah. But the bottom line is my parents were so good. They did everything for me. They were, my dad always believed in me, always believed that I could do it. And so, I think when you have your family that you're trying to help, and you just have to always go back to those positive things. Remember, emotions, thoughts, or energy. If you're always, and probably the number one thing of all of it is to not have fear over what's going to happen. What if I lose? What if I look bad in front of my friends? What if my dad's going to yell at me? I see kids that are so crippled by their parents, especially playing baseball, because they want it so bad for themselves. And and look, teenage boys and teenage girls, any of us, it's your journey. It's not about the parents. It's their own lives. They're their own person. And yes, we're there for support. We're kind of keep them on the right track.
And it's fun to watch them compete. And it's fun. I love it.
Yes.
I don't like volleyball at all. I don't even know the rules. My kids playing, I love watching it. I get all emotional. I'm screaming, yay, That's easy to do.
It's just that love for your kids, right? It's that love for your kids.
Totally. I'll just so live that truth. You mentioned sisters. Let's talk about that dynamic a little bit before we go back to my notes. In just fairness, I didn't even know you had sisters. So what's that dynamic like? Am I just ignorant? But I think you've probably had a success recognized by the world more so than them, maybe. Is there something there worth talking about?
Well, a lot of people know me because when at the height of my success, there were 3 networks, news networks, right? So when I was winning, I was on Good Morning America, had interviews, USA Today, ESPN. Like I had amazing coverage when I was winning and doing so good. My age, because of Scamper, winning more than the men, when I went at a time when we didn't have equal money for women at the time, right? And so I became a household name for, that generation. And then they, their mothers or have daughters, right? And so I think a lot of people know who I am. So just because of that era and that time. And so, my sisters, they traveled with me. My oldest sister, she was just here. All my sisters were here for my dad's birthday. My dad's turning 90. And so they were all here. And we're all very close. And they all traveled with me. And it wasn't just, to me, I just feel like there was no jealousy. It was just always, they were part of the team.
Right.
They went with me. And my oldest sister, I remember as a kid, I was probably 5 or 6 years old. She's 6 years older than I am. And we got on this horse bareback, Tom Dooley, and we ran across a pasture south of the feedlot there as fast as that horse could go. And neither one of us had any fear. Bareback, just flying out across the prairie. And, just that, like, if it wasn't for my sisters who rode better than me and did more things.
Youngest?
I was the youngest of them.
I have this hypothesis. The youngest, oftentimes, boy, girl, whatever, will turn out to be the best athlete. I think they learn stuff earlier. They're challenged. They're
and maybe the parents aren't as worried by the time they get to the fourth one. There's not as much control. I don't know. Things do change with the second one when it comes around. There's a lot of things to that, but I really feel like don't put any kind of limitations on being the firstborn, the lastborn, the middle, the only child. No limitations on it. A lot of people say, oh, you can only, run barrels in this bridle and then you got to go in this one. Quit putting limitations on anything that you do. Oh, I only do good on playing, at nighttime. I don't do good in the morning.
I can't run in the mud, just whatever.
Like, I think quit putting limitations on any of it. And, hey, so what? You're different. You're just a different personality.
Well, that's what I thought was probably potentially true with you and your siblings. Like, me and my brother, we're way different. We're just kind of interested in different stuff. We're just different people. That's fine.
My oldest sister's really good with horses, really likes horses. My other sister, she was into finance.
Yeah.
She works in a big high-rise in Dallas.
Yeah.
And my other sister's a CPA. But the one thing we all do have in common, we love animals. My dad fought in the Korean War. I mean, he's a tough guy. Grew up hunting in Oklahoma. He's a guy now, he doesn't even want to shoot anything now. He loves animals, and is that weird? I don't think so. I think it's just who we are.
Yeah.
We just have this love. His respect for animals made a huge impact on me because he always was like, if you jerk on them, you're not going to ride them, and that's the only thing we had as a kid. So very early on, had this idea that showing respect to the horses and animals was very important. It was a big part of it. And it's, I see so many clinicians and people out there that it's all just a show and a persona and behind the scene of not necessarily loving the animals, but that's just something that's really part of my whole family. My niece just found bunnies. Well, she welds, and she's also an art teacher, and she found some bunnies, and they're trying to nurture these bunnies. So a lot of people don't understand that part of my success was just having this nurturing love of the animals, love for the sport, but just gritty when it comes to competing and and
do you
being
compete
driven.
at anything you do, like cards or dominoes? Or,
Oh yeah, I mean,
you're just generally competitive too. Like that's kind of a characteristic.
I think so. Where there's some people who don't want that pressure, like I thrive on it.
Right. Was that just from day one? Is it a thing you learned?
I think so. I think so. I just feel like I was fearless.
Yeah.
Loved it, and just willing to take on a challenge.
It's fun to watch. Like I'll go back and watch the run you made at the NFR where the bridle came off Scamper and he runs. I just wrote a note. It could be a dumb question, but I'm curious. Could you name your favorite horse? Do you have a favorite horse?
Well, I love all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Scamper and Cruiser, those are the two, Scamper, I grew up with him. He was my partner. We were a team.
Yeah.
It was, he was part of the family. I mean, I don't know what else you say. It was just a bond like you cannot imagine. Right. And so as special as that was for all those years, I was never away from him for more than a day, all those years competing. I mean, I
never even think about that.
I was so committed to him. And there was just so many pieces that made it all so good. It was a plan. There was a purpose, but he was good. He was tough. I had the right mindset. Like Ty said, maybe the right body type. I wasn't too big. I wasn't too little. I was strong. I was, I don't know. All the pieces, the things you don't necessarily think about, all came together. I had a underlying inquisitive of how to stay healthy, what to feed, reaching out to people. I don't know. I came across people that fell into my lap, probably because I needed them and wanted them, of just great horseshoers and the right vets and the right people at the right time in your team who help you.
You bet. Putting out that kind of
energy.
Vibe,
yes.
energy.
Yes.
Right. I don't think I've even told you. My father-in-law is a guy named Kenneth Harvick, Gore Brothers Feed. And hanging in one of their offices is a picture of you on one of a bag of feed they made.
Yes.
So there's that kind of connection that they have a bit of, like, the idea that they could make a feed that fit your program, fit what you were looking for. They feel like they're on your team, like they're proud of the things you accomplished in small role that they could play. As they're building a business, it's illustrating again how intertwined we all are in everything we do. From this conversation to my daughters, to whoever might be listening. Find those fun pieces that you can just be a small piece of somebody else's success and love that.
Right.
Because somebody's being a small piece of your success and they can love that. It's part of that thing where I think comparison and these kind of things that we do to ourselves are so bad.
And that's the danger in social media today, is that people are getting on there and comparing themselves. And I was a great barrel racer. I had Scamper, had Cruiser, went to the finals 19 times, but I'm not Donald Trump.
Right.
I'm like, look at what that guy's accomplished in business and where he started and the risks that he took. And,
sure.
And there may be some people out there aren't a fan of him, but regardless, you have to know what he did business-wise, right? And so I don't compare to him. I would love to learn, like, how were some of these things? Could they benefit me? But really, we're all on our own journey, and you have to be clear about what you want. Yeah. So you can lock in, focus on them, imagine how it's going to be, and put the wheels in motion, how to get there.
Okay, so back to these notes. I asked the favorite horse. That was one I just wanted to say. Like, there's always these recognizable horses, but it didn't never occur to me, like, how close you had to be with that horse. Like, almost really every day of your life you were together. So it's hard to pick a different one.
It's like we thought the same things.
Yeah, right. Okay, so back to the kids a little bit. And then I want to touch, you could have this in the back of your mind, but I'm wondering, faith's really important to me. I live it. I feel God in my life. It's an important truth. I love sharing that conversation. I want to ask, after we get done with the kids piece, is like, have you ever doubted God? Like, because I think people do. I have, and how you kind of allow that without totally saying this is just a thing I can't deal with. Matter of fact, let's just ask.
All right,
let's just go there.
Well, it's funny. I grew up in the Catholic Church. Went to church, and my parents. I think the biggest thing that it wasn't necessarily the church. I think it's just God in you is that love and that kindness, and wanting to do the wrong thing. And I think a lot of things are wrong today with, the people, this thing that once you've done wrong, you're going to hell. But I think this kind of thing, you doubt all that along the way. I think we're all evolving. Every day is a journey. And I don't look at it, I just look at it that God presented these opportunities for us to see what we're going to do, testing us every day. And some fall more than others, but for the ones that have done the worst things, and I know I haven't always done great things, I had to forgive myself for them. I had to know that I had to do better in those things. And I like to think that I live, God is between my temples, my two temples every day so much. And trying to understand the Bible, not through someone else's words, but as God speaks to me, as I see that. And so it becomes this thing. I think even in the rodeo world, there were so many people who would sell horses based on I'm a good Christian, and then they have Jesus over the top of their gate when you drive in and you go, and it's every other word is praise God, and then you get there and you see that they've given the horse a shot of something, right? Oh, he's sound, he's fine, and and then you're like, well, how can people do this and still think that they're Christians? And I think with that, I understand that people are trying to make money. People need money. People, need to put food on the table and different aspects of it, right? But everything that I want to try to do and work every day is to just make sure that every move that I make now is they're looking at me and examining every move, every thought. It's not, and a lot of people think it's just about what people see and what people perceive, and not what's in somebody's heart and their actions. And that's when you really know somebody and can tell if they're walking with God is by their long-term actions of what they're doing. And hey, every day we have to wake up and be like, all right, ego, Satan, you're not walking with me today. I'm sorry. You just don't fit in my life. And when you do things to me that are better quality things, you take care of your family, you help somebody, you tell the lady, the janitor in the airport, thanks for cleaning these bathrooms. The little tiny things go to that God that lives inside of you of helping you expand. And that's how I see things, these little things that really are huge that you may not even know about. And so whatever people perceive of you on the outside, if you think you can fool them into what you want them to see, the truth always shows up of who you are and what's inside, and ultimately creates your happiness and the things that happen for you, to you, for you.
That's right. One of my guests said something like, we're a spiritual being having a human experience.
I love that. Yes,
not a human having a spiritual experience.
Yeah, but religion and some of these people have really turned. I go to California and the people there don't even believe in God. It's just not part of them. And then for me, I'm not saying it to try to get money from anybody. I'm not trying to sell them a horse. I'm not, but they honestly know that they are perfect the way they are. Yeah. They are, and whatever they've done, you can forgive yourself. God will forgive you. But once you know better, you have to do better. And you can't keep making the same mistake over and over again, or it's like going back to 4th grade again. You're just going to keep repeating it over and over again until you get it right.
Yeah. I mean,
and we've all been there.
Well, you've had people treat you that way. That's how I like to think about it. So let's say somebody has harmed me in some way, and they said, I'm sorry, genuinely. Like, I see where I messed up there. I'm going to work to fix that. Then they do it again next week. Oh, I'm sorry. And then they do it again the week after that. Pretty quick, you realize they don't mean to change
what they're saying. Their actions don't match their words.
I think as a Christian, I like to hold myself accountable in that way. It's like, okay, God, I'm sorry. Thank you for the forgiveness I know is available to me through Jesus. Now let's don't do that again tomorrow. It's like, okay, now we got to make a real change, and that's hard.
There's a psychologist from the UK, Jan Halper, and she says that the people's words and actions have to match. Yeah. And I think that in itself helps us with business, helps us in everything that we do, right? And it's all tied together. It's not separate.
Those are cowboy ethics and morals. Aside from being Christian ethics and morals, they're kind of cowboy pieces.
It's all the same,
that's
right?
I've had success in business because I just think if I said I'm going to do it, I should. Even if it means I lose money on that deal or look stupid, like whatever the consequence is, I still have to show up and take my shapping or whatever, like in the cowboy world, you show up to Brandon late, you do something stupid, you get shapped. Yes. I don't care. Grown men get shapped, It's just a great piece of that culture, I think, so valuable that we lose a little bit.
Well, and here's the thing. I think here's an important piece to all of it. With boys competing, and I see, the things that happen with football moms and guys and all the things surrounding all of that is that, oh, this kid is playing football and they shouldn't have hit that kid that hard, and that's terrible, and those coaches said this, and this victim mentality that is sweeping over our people, whether it's girls or boys or whoever it is.
Adults, everybody.
You quit being a victim. And if you're going to play football, go play hard, have fun, enjoy what you're doing. You're going to have people, competing all those years, there were people who loved me, but there was also people when you win that hate you and despise you and want you to die at any moment. They're happy.
It is crazy, but that's so true.
And so you have that out there, and you're like, okay, it's, you can't go by what other people are thinking. You can't read into their energy of it. You have to always rise above it.
Did you get that at a young age? I'm thinking about young listeners.
I had that from.
Always had that.
I had that from a young age. It was gifted, but I don't think it just has to be gifted. I think you can learn it, and I think you can do it, and I think you can take that 2% action every day when the situation arises, when that person who said something to you, I kind of like my younger son decided to not play football. And I love this story. And he just decided to focus on getting bigger, stronger, focus on baseball, so he has a chance to get recruited for college. And he made that decision. And he's a good receiver playing football. Yeah. Well, one of the coaches went in there and told him, "You're just a quitter. You're just a quitter," because he's in there working on working on his baseball. And so this coach, trying to belittle him a little bit. And, he just to himself, he goes, "I guess he thinks I'm good."
Yeah. See, that's such a good default mindset.
That's not trained. He's not old enough. That's what's in there. Now, maybe being around Tony and I, we're both real positive. That's kind of just how we think. And so maybe that's a little bit, but I think some of that's already just inherently there. But I do know from being around people and training people all these years to be better competitors that you can change that. You can change anything. You have the choice at any moment to change it. Some things are a little more difficult than others.
Yeah. You've got the choice. Like, you're in charge of the choice.
Yeah, you can be a choice to be victimized and bullied by people in school and to live that. Or, you know what, maybe I was different because God created me to be a little more artsy. Sure. Right? And maybe I was more of a theater type person and I didn't fit in with the rodeo crowd or the football crowd. You just have to be who you are. And if those rodeo people or the football people treated you bad, that's on them. They should never be treating people bad.
Yeah. Everybody,
there's a place for everybody. What if we were all the same? What if, right? What about this hot barrel horse? Scamper he was hot, right? He's not good for a beginner to ride.
Right.
So it's not the right situation.
Sure.
Right? So
I think almost any human that is trying to bring another one down, it's not about the person they're being mean to. I tell my kids, and I try to do this. Somebody's like trying to harm me, hurt me, just be catty, whatever those. It's really because they're unhappy. If you're a happy person with who you are
also,
and what you're doing,
yes, I agree.
You're not doing that to people.
But maybe this is I'll tap into a little Jordan Peterson and take it a step further and going off in different directions with it. It's also, too, that when they get caught up in trying to bring someone else down, it's kind of adrenaline. Yeah. And it's a feel-good thing at the moment. Now, it doesn't stay and it doesn't last, right? So, don't get caught up in it.
Right.
If you're focusing on those other things, you're taking away from focusing on where you need to be or doing something better that's going to create a better path for you, right?
That's why these conversations are just so good for a lot of people, because maybe I'm the person that is finding the little adrenaline rush from seeing somebody squirm or hurt, well, that's not, maybe you could change that. Maybe I'm the person that's kind of a target. How am I going to let that targeting manifest? Am I going to forgive the person for just having a bad day or whatever? Or am I going to be like, oh, yes, I must be ugly?
And it's right. So what if you are getting targeted by somebody and you just keep letting them do it? The old days,
yeah, right.
I don't know. It comes down to, hey,
I'm not putting up with that anymore.
I'm not putting up with it anymore, right?
But
maybe you're not big enough and strong enough, and you need to maybe you need to get tough.
Yeah.
Maybe you do need to go work out. Maybe you do need to get tougher and not let people bully you around.
Did you work out a lot in your career, or were you just kind of in shape because you were riding so much?
Well, I think I rode a lot of horses. I was riding a lot. By the time you're carrying buckets and cleaning stalls and riding your horses. But I did do Pilates on the road a lot, in the trailer in the morning. I think that, being flexible, and giving yourself that moment. Part of the problem in the Western world and the rodeo world is that people didn't take care of themselves.
Sure.
They take better care of their dogs and their horses than they take care of themselves. And this is where I go back to the body, mind, the spirit, right? You might have all the spirit there, like, hey, I love God, I'm working hard, I'm whatever, but they, let's just, instead of prepping maybe something to eat when you leave the house, I'm just going to stop and get that, that greasy fried taco at Allsup's on the way, as good as they were. At some point you got to start thinking, every day this isn't good. Once in a while, and maybe it goes back to, look, learn to eat healthy, learn to exercise, clear your mind of all the thoughts and the things. And so when you lay down and you go to sleep at night, your mind's not going 100 miles an hour. You've got to get rest. You've got to be able to sleep. That's important. For your body to recover. And so, the people in the Western world, like, oh my gosh, if the guy who rode Scamper ate a banana and apple for lunch. And I remember going in there before we got Scamper. That's what he ate. And I was like, how do you live on that?
Right.
But, hey, these are things that are easy for your body.
Sure.
You know?
Well, it's kind of like if God made it, if it's kind of the way it was made by him, it's probably still pretty good to eat.
Well, and I mean, gosh, if you just go back to clean eating, get away from, if you read the label, what's in these foods and the prepackaged foods and,
it seems so blatantly obvious, but maybe it's just the people I'm around. I mean, I don't know. It seems like everybody understands that. How are these big companies staying in business? We know a Twinkie is not good for you. These sugar cereals for these kids. I think there's probably
research from the big companies. Though I think those big companies know what people are going to spend their money on. So remember, a lot of this stuff, Twinkies, all this stuff, right, is sugar. Sugar's more addictive than cocaine.
Yeah.
And we know that sugar's one of the things that debilitates your health.
Yeah.
More than anything. So, you know, it's kind of like if you want to do one thing for your health, all right, well, start learning to curb what you eat. If you can control what you eat, you have better discipline with anything. Getting out to ride your horse, make sure you're setting your shoeing up on time. Make sure you're, you know, not running out of feed for 2 or 3 days and, you know, skimping on hay from this location because it's easier, you know, when you know you should be getting better kind of hay. Like, I think it's all connected.
100%. I mean, that working out, you think more clearly if you're, you know, I say just get your blood pumping for a little while.
So now
it clears you up.
Yeah, like I like to get out now and go on a walk.
Yeah.
Just somewhere where you're in. And the weird thing is that I tease all my friends all the time. I'm a tree hugger. Like I see these big trees. I'm like, I love these big trees, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, because they're like, you know, in the rodeo world, they just assume run over a tree hugger with their truck, right? So, you know, when I do it, it's like, okay, shoot her. You know, she's hugging a tree. But
these big live oak trees are the most beautiful
you know what?
thing.
Like I see nature is just gifts from God. Like when you see beautiful trees and, you know, the redbirds and a beautiful stream and the mountains, the snow-capped mountains. Like, these are all just, to me, it's just what God created, and it's beautiful. And if you are aware of what you feel when you see those and that at peace and that just how you feel when you're there, you have to reach that point more often. So, gosh, if I'm in a city and I can't even get to around any trees or grass, I can picture it in my mind, and I immediately feel better.
Yeah.
You know, so I think being able to, you know, get in a situation, I know running at the finals when it was to win my 10th world title on Scamper, everything was on the line and all the commentators, you know, Bob Tallman, they're all like, oh, Charmayne, you know, building it up and all this hype and whoever's coming up behind me. And to have the ability to block that out and just go back to Scamper and I, we're here. We're going to go do our best. We love it. We're going to go out there, compete, and it's 3 barrels. And be able to let all the outside world go. And that's what a lot of people, to me, that's the part that a lot of people can't do.
Yeah.
And they can do it if they just work at it.
Right.
And sometimes it's the less work that's the answer.
Yeah. Wow. That's just yeehaw all over that. I mean, it's so true. So how do you think about your kids having, okay, so you're able to do things, follow them, they can play the sports they want, but there's also things they're missing from your child, like they don't get to do some of those hard things you had to do. Do you worry about them being spoiled? Do you worry about them being maybe having less of a tool set to deal with life because they didn't get some of those things?
Here's what I think. I think we have been programmed now to think the kids are, there is generally across the board, people are softer. I think everybody, Jordan Peterson talks about it. I mean, everybody sees it, feels it, knows it, right? I think that's what people are so drawn to the Western and the rodeo world, because the men are still men and the women, you know, the women are there supporting the men. It's not this fight against men against women. Everybody understands their place in this common respect. And I think that this is a place where the outside world really loves our world, right? We're not fighting each other per se. And so I do believe, like, I do see that softer side. But what I also see are these boys, these athletes. They're in the gym and they're working out, and they, in some respects, they're working harder than some of these other people in the Western world to get their bodies to where they need to be. I mean, the strength of these guys and what they can do, and the running, and like, it's like, wow, they really are tough.
Yeah.
They are strong and mental, and the competition. There's so many good ones, and to get ahead, it's just they're neck and neck, and who actually makes it and who doesn't.
The strength to deal with not making it and still stay in the game. Like, okay, cool, I didn't make the team this year. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to get better. I'm going to make myself undeniable. So I'm going to have to be undeniable that I deserve it.
Right. So I think this thing of, hey, you got to go move all that hay and all that feed, and you got to be tough, and you got to go ride out in a blizzard. And you know, meanwhile, I think about my older son, Tyler. That kid works hard and is driven, but he is lifting in the morning, and then he's hitting, and he's working out, and he's running, and he's focusing on his school. And there is not a moment in the day for anything else. And I'm thinking, then I go back and I think about my generation, and it's like, okay, these people that are saying you got to move that feed and that hay and whatever, I don't know that they were working that hard. So I do see a generation of people coming on. And
I do dislike this conversation that seems to be like, oh, these generations are just lazy, no good video gamers. I don't perpetuate that. I don't think that's true. There are some video gamers that never come out, but that doesn't make them necessarily lazy.
But there's also a place for...
How are we going to talk about it?
Well, to be a programmer, to be...
Yeah.
I mean, you and I both know we didn't grow up in the digital age and trying to figure all this technology out, right? We need those people who know technology, who can do it. We need them. And once you understand a place for everybody, we've got to have it. Yeah. We have to have the diversity out there. And if everybody, I mean, honestly, if we can just come together and learn to coexist with other people, it's the evil part and the bad things that happen, the abuse, the corruption, all these kind of things that take place, and every little tiny small detail from a coach who took the job so his kids could play. You know, I would hate to be a coach that knew there was a kid that was better than mine, and I placed mine instead to give him the opportunity. I just think that kind of stuff would be a really that's just really a low place to be from.
It kind of eats you from the inside out, I think. There's no way you can do that and it not eat you a little bit.
And if you're that high integrity person, you're going to make your kid know you're going to work harder. If you're going to get in there, you're going to be good.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's, so I think if we can kind of go at it from that point, you know, yes, to be told you're not good enough, to be told you weren't there, hey, you've got to keep working. And it's those things that drive you, that light that fire, that drive us. And I'm not here today to be like, it's all about me. It's really about those people out there and those listeners. And, you know, I don't care if you're a mother who, I know what it's like to put your career on hold to raise your kids. I did that, and I am thankful for that. Yeah. And it's not glamorous. You're not at the finals. Everybody's like, oh, you're just teaching, But it's been the greatest gift I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
To share what I learned with Scamper for the people out there. So if it's a guy who wants better crops, you can figure out a way to do better crops. We need those people, right?
Absolutely. Really, the opportunity, it's that abundance mindset you talked about. We're jaded in America potentially because the opportunity is so abundant. I mean, really, you could make a living doing almost anything in America that I can think of. I mean, somebody's making these things here on the wall. Somebody's making this metal thing. Somebody's putting this together. Somebody's made this hat. I mean, it's just like so many different things you could do to build a company, make a living, work for a company.
I think if we do things that are high integrity, like growing food, right? Like the farmers, like thank goodness for the farmers across the country. And I know it's been hard for them. You know, my family being in the feedlot industry, I know that things are hard, but that's what made us like tough in a lot of ways, right? And I
still think I'd like to see your boys have to go feed all them horses in a blizzard one day. I mean, there's some, although they're doing things they don't want to have to do.
Well,
like they're
they
not
have
excited
clean
about.
stalls.
Well, right, but
they don't. They've said they really want zero to do with horses.
Yeah.
But
I'm just thinking about Clayton, New Mexico, wintertime, windstorms. Like, and you don't get the option. Those horses can't get food.
I can share those stories with them. And when they, you know, now I probably complain more about the wind and the cold, and they're like, get over it, Mom. Like, toughen up. I mean, when they're telling me quit being a victim, right? They all keep us in balance, right? Yeah. Like, okay, you're right. I'll just toughen up a little bit.
Sure.
But I don't like the wind and I don't like the cold. Yeah. I feel like I need to move to Costa Rica, to the mountains in the Sun Belt, so I can go out and get a banana off the tree. I'll be happy.
Oh, that's great.
And I'll hug it after I get the banana off. Yeah. Thank God for it, right? I mean, you know, so if my kids saw me right now, they'd be horrified to hear me say that. But, you know, that's what's in my heart. That's who right. I am. It's okay. It's all right.
I think about these conversations is, like, I don't know, my clock's ticking. Like, I'm alive. I don't know when the last second drops. It might be now, tomorrow. I don't know. So these conversations, I love the chance to have them for my kids. Like, let's say I disappear, you know. Now there's some way for them to hear how I think about things. Not that it's perfect or exactly right for them, but it's a way for me to kind of be around for them, be around for my grandkids. Your kids could listen to this someday, maybe when you're gone. I mean, who knows? Like, that's the great thing about this particular platform. It can just live forever, really.
Yeah.
I love that opportunity it gives us to just say things. You know, my kids, hey, you're saying, they just couldn't believe I'm saying that. But at a point in their life, they'll be like, man, I totally get what Mom meant, you know. It's like I hear my parents talk about things that I didn't have. I was like, that makes no sense. What? You're crazy. And now I'm saying the same stuff. I'm like, geez, you knew so much about what you're talking about.
Hey, and maybe sometimes things are said that we don't even necessarily consciously think that came out that was probably God speaking through us, right?
Absolutely, 100%. You may have experienced this. I see it pretty often in these conversations. A huge event in your life that somebody else was involved in, they don't even remember. Like, it's so funny how I'll remember this thing my parents did, had me do, held me accountable for it, and they're like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. It was big to me, but it wasn't to them. So we all need to keep that in mind. Like, you're a part of somebody else's big moment. Most of the time, you're totally unaware of it. So that's why you got to be accountable to being this loving, good human all the time.
Yes.
Yes. You've got all those million opportunities to be a part of somebody's big moment. How come you just hadn't? This is the last thing I want to ask. I think I don't know, I'm just curious. Well, no, I can't say it's the last thing. Tell me the story of how you got Scamper, because I kind of have this foggy recollection, but I think it's really cool.
Yeah, so I had a horse named Bardo, and Bardo was my oldest sister's horse, and he was kind of a race horse, and she really didn't want him. He was kind of hot and crazy, and the horse that I had was kind of a runaway, and he was beginning to get a little, like, his front feet were a little sore, and so I was after my mom and dad. I really want to ride Bardo. And they're like, I don't know, that horse, you know.
Yeah.
So I convinced my dad to let me ride that horse, and he was this big, just thoroughbred. He was probably 16-1.
Yeah.
And so I finally talked him into letting me ride him. Well, I went with the cowboys over to the farm. It was about 6-7 miles away. and we were moving cattle that day on the farm. And so we took off out across, the prairie out there, headed to cross one of the wheat fields to gather. And this horse was running sideways and leaping and lunging. And of course, my dad had put a big bit on him. I had a big Sleister bit on him so that I could, because I was little. I was like
have a
8.
little leverage.
Yeah, I had a little control over him. And this horse was leaping and lunging, and I remember that cowboy looking over at me. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I was scared to death. And I was like, "No, I'm fine.
Right.
Everything's good." And he just kept looking. I just could tell by the look on his face. Well, I just hung with it, and before long, this horse had settled down. And by the end of the day, after moving cattle all day, he was kind of quiet. And so he got that every day. He was rode from sunup till sundown. Every rib in his body was showing. He had free choice feed, but he got the hair rode off of him. But anyway, that horse turned into a really good barrel horse. I trained him to run barrels. I probably won between 10 and 15,000 on him going to amateur rodeos on two different summers. And then he broke his leg. I let my sister borrow him. She was going to run him in the poles at I think a high school rodeo or something, and he broke his leg, fractured it. And it was devastating. Our whole family cried. It was a big deal, and I just prayed for a horse. I remember going out, looking at the stars, praying to God, like, bring me a horse, bring me a horse. I wanted to go to the racetrack, and I wanted a black horse, and I wanted a gray horse. You're just this little girl, right, that wants that horse. And so finally my dad goes, "Charmayne, there's a little bay horse down there in the pen. I think you should get on him." Like, okay. So I go and get on him, and my dad said, "Look, he's been known to buck. You got to walk him for a while before you trot him or lope him." Okay. So I get on him, and I go out behind the barn, and I ask him to lope, and he kicked up, like he crow hopped, and I laughed. I thought it was funny, and I could just feel like he just looked at me like, what is going on? Like, she's not going to be mad at me? And it was like that very moment in time. It was like, I love her.
Yeah.
And so we just were like a team from that moment on. I went back out where my mom and dad were. He was really broke. And I just loped him around the barrels. He'd never been around the barrels, but he just loped around the barrels. And that's when my mom and dad, they're like, "Well, you should call him Scamper." And so that's how it started with Scamper.
So y'all owned him at that point?
He belonged to a cowboy in the feedlot that was leaving, and my dad ended up paying $1,100 for him. At which my dad's like, "That was too much money," at the time.
At the moment.
And that's how it started. So I amateur rodeoed on him for a couple years and cleaned up at the amateur rodeos, and a lot of them were flagged. So Scamper never looked like he was running. So they all thought we'd paid the flagman off. I mean, that they missed my time, Just, it was crazy.
It's funny how even athletes, I think sometimes a baseball player's swing just looks like they're not swinging, but they're hitting homers.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's just such an
smooth
process that it looks like nothing, but it's great. I mean,
right,
so
no wasted.
Yeah.
No wasted movement. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of basic story of how it all started. And now, fast forward to when Scamper was retired and taking him to Las Vegas, for people to have their picture taken with him. Little girls would come up there, and he just nuzzle in their hair like he loved little girls.
Yeah.
So it's just, how can you go back and things line up that way? I tell people, look, we all have guardian angels, and I know I have one that was with me that night the bridle broke, because I don't know how we got stopped before we hit the concrete. There was no gate, nothing. It was just a free shot out that alleyway to the streets into Las Vegas Boulevard. And I was already thinking, okay, I'm not riding him on the concrete. I'm jumping off on the dirt. And, when you're thinking that, you've been in enough wreck as a kid to already be processing that, right?
Okay, if he's not doing something different by this buck and shoot, I'm going to have to just jump. Right.
So everybody that's probably rode horses and bulls and whatever, you kind of already been in wrecks. You kind of already know that. So anyway, he got stopped, but I don't know. It all lined up the way it's supposed to.
Thank you for being here. I've enjoyed it. Your energy's awesome. It's fun. It's nice to practice with somebody else, matching that and having that.
Hey,
wow, that's
there
cool.
there are no coincidences, right? We have
Right.
that. I don't know anything about you, and we're on the same page, right? So
Totally.
So like-minded people attract each other, and I think surrounding yourself with good, positive people, and if we put that out, that's who we're going to be around. So that's why
Absolutely.
you're here.
Well, thanks for the time. It's been a blast. I can't wait for the TCP Nation to hear from Charmayne James and this exploration of really your mindset, your life, and how you live it and how you think about it. Everybody, thanks for listening. Come back next time. We'll talk to, I know it'll be somebody else. Thanks to God guiding my life, I know the next person on here is going to be a really fun conversation for me. And if it is fun for me, it has to be valuable to whoever happens along and listens.
Absolutely.
So, thanks for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hey,
Thank
good
you.
luck, fellas. Your boys, I want to shoot them a good luck.
And yours too. Tell all your family.
Yeah, I will. And Tony, thanks for helping me get it all set up. It's been awesome.
Thank you.